Sri Lanka. They were 3 for 4. They're now 12 for 4.
Oh, it's back on.
India.
It's back on. If they come back from this, Paul, you're going to eat your words here.
Oh, wow, if they come back.
I'm going to put £1 on Sri Lanka.
One of the greatest comebacks in sporting history. Look at the way India are bowling.
Asalanka on naught from 12 balls.
Siraj just taken pity. I think he's just bowling pies now because he just felt sorry for them.
Give us a game, lads.
Anyway, staying with cricket, what a great honour to find yourself in the Collins Dictionary.
Yes.
For coining the term Bazball.
Amazing, isn't it?
We're about to discover whether it was just a little throwaway comment or whether it was something that our next guest had planned for the podcast that is first popped up in. He is the UK editor of ESPN Cricket Info. He's probably watching this game as we speak. Andrew Miller joins us. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Hello, Andrew.
Good afternoon. Yeah, and I think Sri Lanka got a better chance of bouncing back than England do in this tournament. Put it that way.
I did love the honesty of Mark Wood, never less than honest. How do you think Australia feel about facing you at the weekend? Mark says, I don't think they'll be pooing their pants. Yeah, I think he's probably right. We'll come on to that. But first, let's start with Bazball. So it wasn't an ESPN podcast that you did. Did it just come to you? Had you thought of it and thought, I'll throw that into the podcast? How did it come about?
Yeah, it was a weird one, really. I mean, it's obviously a lot of people have got the habit of sort of throwing ball at the end of things to describe what's going on in sporting terminology. And obviously this one had a ring with baseball. And I threw it in there because I kind of figured this was in May 2022. So it was about 2 weeks before Brendon McCullum took over as head coach. I just had a hunch that there was no way that England would appoint this guy who had been so famous for smacking the ball all over the place if they weren't going to try and smack the ball all over the place. So I kind of figured, you know what, we are going to be witnessing a very different approach to Test cricket, but it's one that I think has probably been seen before by Brendon McCullum when he was playing cricket. It's Bazball, isn't it? That was kind of the thought process that went into coining it, and then obviously it kind of caught on because almost from the get-go, first morning of that Test match 2 weeks later, England had posted 6 slips after taking early wickets. They were clearly attacking every moment. Jack Leach went chasing the ball over the boundary and gave himself concussion because he was so eager to get in the mix of it. And then England started teeing off and smacking the ball everywhere. And it's like, yeah, okay, this kind of works as a phrase, and so it got a bit of traction thereafter, and now
I'd say so.
Into the dictionary.
Did you trademark it?
Yeah. No, I didn't. I completely blew that.
You and my friend Dan Atkinson, who's a comic, is the first person, and he's proven it that he said Wagatha Christie first. He tweeted Wagatha Christie, right. Didn't trademark it.
Yes,
and it has since been trademarked by Becky Vardy.
I think I've probably got a pretty good case. It's pretty well documented.
Yeah.
It's in Wisden. It's now in the dictionary. The various citations in various publications. So if I feel a bit broken years to come, I might do a retrospective grab on it.
We all loved it. The only person who seems didn't was Brendon McCullum.
Yeah, cursing it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit awkward, isn't it? But he's obviously a very modest chap, isn't he? Yeah. But no, it really was coined with him in mind, because a lot of people on Twitter have been saying, "Oh, this is nothing new, and what England are doing is not exactly mould breaking." And frankly, that was kind of my point in calling it Bazball as opposed to say Ben Ball for Ben Stokes or whatever. This is what England's head coach had done when he was playing Test cricket. Famously, his final Test innings was a 54-ball record century against Australia of all teams. He loved to lump it, and he passed on that love of attacking, aggressive, positive cricket into a team that clearly loved the message.
Yeah. What have you made of this? It's been a bin fire of a World Cup for England. Absolute disaster, isn't it? A bit of pressure on the coach, a lot of questions being asked. So many players just out of nick. It's such a weird performance, this, isn't it?
It is, and obviously, in the wake of what we saw with Bazball, it does make you wonder just how important mindset, isn't it? The thing that I suppose the most important aspect of how England played, regardless of whether they liked the name or not, was they chose their squad really early on, and they said, you know what, we trust this group of players. We're going to stick with them through hell and high water. We will not going to listen to any outside noise. We believe in you. Go out there and do it. And I just wonder whether, opening the lid on that squad, and, you got a few different guys who've come into this World Cup squad. They haven't had a lot of practice in 50 over cricket in recent times. Had a few guys who come in late. Darwin Milan made a late bid because he's in great form. Harry Brook wasn't in the World Cup squad and then suddenly got shoehorned in at the last minute, obviously, again, on merit. But it doesn't feel as though England have gone in with that same sort of complete focus that they went into the Ashes, obviously in a different format than Test cricket. But it doesn't look like these guys are completely there mentally, and then the mental side of the game seems to be such an important part of what this Bazball phenomenon ended up being.
I heard someone suggest finally that maybe Owen Morgan could be the right man to take on the white ball team.
I think he could well be. I mean, I think he's backtracked on whether he'd actually want to do it, but. I mean, Morgan and Brendon McCullum were clearly great mates. In fact, the whole Bazball revolution essentially stems from what happened with England's white ball team in 2015. Brendon McCullum's New Zealand gave England the hiding of their lives in a match in that tournament. And they were great mates. And Brendon McCullum and Morgan basically sat down soon afterwards, and he asked him, what do I need to do to make my team as solid and as good as your team, who obviously got to the World Cup final? And the blueprint essentially came out of the conversations they had. And so, yeah, I think there's an awful lot of merit. Whether he wants to do it is another thing entirely. But clearly McCullum had no pedigree as a red ball test coach when he came on board and did wonders. Morgan hasn't got any pedigree as a coach per se, but he's clearly got the respect of the players who would come in under his wing. So I wouldn't rule it out, but put it that way.
Well, congratulations on making the dictionary,
Magic,
Andrew. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Great pleasure.
There we are, the UK editor of ESPN Cricket Info, Andrew Miller.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons 1 till 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.